This afternoon, after a very intense shopping with the lovely bride, I got to do something that I've been waiting for a long time to do, because this is the part that holds the license plate, and it was flat black. Everybody knows how I hate flat black. Well, as long as I had it apart, and the little supports that hold it were kind of corroded from 7 years of riding around where we are. And I did the little lip by the tail light. Now, what I've been doing with Rob's bike is whenever I have spare time, and I don't have enough time to start a big project today, but even painted the back of the license plate. How cool is that? But you can see how nice that black flows out too. The thing is, there's 100 little parts on this bike that waterfalls are cooking along here. What a beautiful day. I'm glad we got done early so I could get some of these little jobs done, because I've neglected working on my own stuff and on Rob's stuff because I wanted to finish up some of these projects. Glenn's tank is drying away here. We got those ready. But these parts that go on here, this was really an ordeal getting these parts off. Every one of these modern bikes I've ever taken apart, when you start going at this end of the bike with a seat where all the electronics are, it doesn't look like it, but it's a pain in the ass to work. It's a super pain in the ass to work on that R1. Just too many wires and things holding things together. But anyway, I did get that. I'm hoping that's going to look nice when I get it all together tomorrow, or maybe the next day. But it's like something I always say, little details make the whole project. And this is one of the little details. Having painted up this little side, this little area was on a stock bike flat. The side of the fairing, now why the hell did they make the side of the fairing flat? It's unbelievable. But now, and we had the little hugger we've painted. Here's another thing, the mirrors. Sooner or later they're going into the see, here's a set of exactly the same mirrors in gloss black and flat black. And when I have to take I won't do it because it's a big job, to take the fairing apart for some other reason. That looks like a candidate for a nice paint job too. And little things like the gold bolts, all these little details, they just make I don't know, no matter what bike you're working on, they just make it a little more fun. Now the parts have dried up nicely overnight. They're pretty much ready to be buffed out. Glenn's project, I still have to bring the tank in. It's ready for the stripe. That'll be the next part of this project, will be the stripe. Gas cap came out great. Vlad's parts are ready for a final buff out here any day. We're waiting, we're gonna have a whole buffing day for Vlad's parts and he'll be ready to pick those up. Mark still has to get here for a day of decal setting before we can do the next step on a Honda. So I guess, looking at this realistically, the first thing I ought to do is buff out the parts and put Rob's bike, put these little things back on his bike. And little details like this make all the difference to me in the world, how that bike looks. It really looks upgraded. This thing had a big tongue hanging down with a reflector. It's going to look a lot nicer with that when we get this buffed out and put together. Now I thought I'd use this as a test. We have this brand new sandpaper Mark bought for buffing. It's 2000, it's not 2500, of course from Portugal. And I got some parts. Now the reason I wanted to do this test early today is this is soft paint. I normally like to let this sit a couple of days, but in this case I just want to see how this paper is going to cut. Because I'm going to have to buff Vlad's whole project out, and at some point in time we're going to do, if we ever get all the decals on Mark's Honda, which looks like maybe he should have been in a wallpapering business, I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to see how this was going to cut. It's 2000 grit. And this is a good experimental part because if we go through, there's black underneath, number one. Number two, we can just put a little more clear on it. And one of the reasons I really wanted to detail this bike out a little more and keep it looking very stock, yet I have made a different seat for it that fits my fat behind a little better. That was a big upgrade to me. I like painting all these little parts shiny black. Whenever I've seen it right next to one that has got all the flat black parts, it's like, to me, it's no contest. I'm just not into the flat black look. Although I do realize some people think that's cool. They paint something perfectly good flat black. So let's see how this cuts. And my initial impression, just to tell Mark, is that, let's get a little look at it up close and personal. That looks like it's going to be real good. Now, what I always do whenever I'm doing any testing, I take the medium cut 80-21, put a couple of drops on the buffing wheel that I keep for 80-21, and just all I want to see is if this paint is going to be hard enough to retain a shine. It only takes a minute to figure it out. And when it's ready, in a matter of a minute or so, it comes right up. When it's not ready, it just doesn't have that nice deep gloss. Now, one of the reasons there's a lot of reasons I like this Kawasaki. When Rob and I share the bike, of course, it's really his bike. I just maintain it for him while Miles is young and he's not riding a lot. But one thing really convinced me how much I like it is, we took it to a track day in Pocono, I think last year or the year before. And it was a ton of fun to have on track day. It was just a blast. It handled great. The brakes are outstanding. It goes a little over 125 on the long straightaway. And at the end of the day, when I put it back in the van, and it's stone reliable. Stone. Quiet. You don't get any tickets. It fills a nice little niche in my the bikes I enjoy riding. It really is. It's a nice addition to any collection, and it's pretty much like an SV650 is. It's just a good all-around bike, period. And so to have one that's really not #1 whistle clean and a little bit custom is just super duper. Now, I didn't push down hard on the compound because I know this paint is still maybe a little soft, but you can pretty much see that's going to come right up. Now, even a little piece like this. See, even little pieces like this you can learn something from. Notice, and it's my philosophy, when you're testing paint, you always do a small part first. I'm saving the biggest part for last, and with the extra paint I had left over from this mix, what I did, I had the bracket and a license plate and painted the back of the license plate. It always annoyed me to see the back of the plate. I mean, they make them in prison, let's face it. You know, they're not like White Castle hamburgers where they're very attractive. So, but the test is always, and this paper, by the way, this is 2000 grit, and boy, Mark, I think when it comes time to actually doing, or whatever we're going to be doing buffing, I think this paper is just going to be great. So far, so good. We have really had with this, I put the information on previous videos. The 600 is just great to sand out before you like a color sanding, or for buffing. I've used the cheaper sandpaper and I've used 3M, and I like this the best. Not only the best, by far. Now, just an example how quick it cuts. And if you could see, here's the test. If you start to see little globs of clear here, little like jelly beans, what'll happen, it'll put scratches in here. Then you just stop and wait a day, put this in a warm area, let it cook. The next day, that probably won't happen. Now, the most critical thing before you do anything, before you even go on to buffing, is that every part has to be dull and flat. If there are any shiny spots, what's going to happen, they're going to come through in the buffed out surface. Another nice little tip you can use that I've used is, and I've been buffing this a little bit before we started, so I wanted to demonstrate this. As I get to the point where I start to see the part shine a little bit, let's just see it come up. You can show this. This is a really good tip, by the way. And by the way, YouTube, which I've been watching extensively, It's just loaded with good little tips. I see it's buffed in one spot, not buffed in the other spot. But you can take the pad itself, and this is just ordinary spray wax. Once I get it to start to shine, and then that can give me that final little bit of shine on everything. And you see what it does, it rejuvenates the compound. And this compound is so expensive that I try to save it. You can see it's just flying off there, but putting that little bit of spray wax into the mix right at the end is a really nice idea. And keep in mind, buffing things out is just, if you look out on the internet, you'll see there's Ammo NYC is real good at doing cars, and you can always pick up tips from everybody. And a lot of them I don't find real, I mean, I think that the information is not that good, but most of the people, I think they're honestly trying to share their the information, or to try to help you do what you want to do. And even little, I always say, even little parts like this and the detail, when this is all put together, you may not even, your eye may not even realize why one bike is just a little nicer than the other. But a little detail part like that, you will definitely see it. I'll see it. And no matter how big or how small a part is, or how many little that you can see from the little dust that's got caught in the paint the other day when we painted this. But if you break, this is why I don't need a spray booth, because if I'm going to break everything down and sand it and buff it, you know, the thing with all of this stuff that I think is funny. Yeah, if you have a big body shop, yeah, you have a $20,000-$30,000 spray booth and all kinds of $1,200 spray guns and everything. But if you're going to paint your own motorcycle and you're willing to do a lot of what I'm doing right now, you don't need any of that. You could follow through the little system I've developed, and of course there are a million good systems. Mine, I believe, is one of them. But it requires almost no money. Maybe a little more effort than just doing it the expensive way. But in the end, I think the net result is the parts look just as nice, which is the bottom line. But here's what I'm trying to say is, before you do anything, no need to do it, that whole part has to look like that. If you see shiny spots, if you see the little dots in the paint, the whole part has to look like that before you start buffing it. That is the key to doing this the way I do it. And this sandpaper mark, by the way, looks like it works great. Now with the bike all put back together, one of the things I really like, I like the way this played out. That added a nice little touch. Actually, you can see the light reflecting in there. That is quite a nice little upgrade for pretty much one afternoon of work. And boy, did it change everything. I had that big thing sticking down there. I didn't like it anyway. All subjective anyway. Back of the license plate painted black, so yep, every time we can do a little bit of an upgrade to this bike, I'm very happy with it, because this bike, I think, is one of the ones, it's a sleeper. It's unexpectedly fun to ride. Yeah, that really did come out nicer than I thought. I mean, I'm just looking around, all the little detailing we've done to this bike. And the good news is we've kept it, that it's, from far away, it looks totally stock. Then you look at it real close and you go, wow, that's pretty nice. I really do like the way that came out. Small investment in time for something that nice. Okay, time to lay out this lovely little stripe, and we are going to get it airbrushed today. It was supposed to rain today. Sun came out. It's absolutely beautiful out there. So I don't want to squander the time away. I want to make sure I get this stripe laid out. At least get the stripe drying overnight if I can. And we can, that's for sure. This should come out nice. Now, as I've done this before, enough times, this is the best way I know of to get a stripe that's going to be a good match. Nice and even. Relatively easy to do, relatively quick. Just lay out the stripe that you want in tape. One side is already taped off. We don't even have to worry about that. And in case of using the airbrush, we won't even have to do a lot of backmasking, just a minimum of backmasking. And because this tank will have decals and other things, just getting this step done will put us one whole day ahead. And that's what I always try to do, is just lay that whole stripe out in one shot. Now once we're here, the rest, pretty relatively easy. We want to put on the permanent blue tape, and of course this being absolutely fresh, brand new roll of tape. And all we're going to do is go around that, backmask a little bit, and we'll be ready to shoot some airbrushing. And as I've been laying this out, I've been checking outside to see what the temperature is. It's just turning out to a beautiful riding day. How come I'm not going riding today? What's wrong with me? Anyway, I was real happy to get that little thing done on the black Kawasaki. It's something I had on my bucket list for a while. But because we've been so busy with the shop, this has been just the craziest winter of all with the shop. Now I put that there. Okay, now the only thing left is, of course, once you pull out this piece of tape, it's perfectly set for our what will be our dark blue stripe. And what if I had my way, I'd do a lot more airbrushing. I wish I was into more complex paint jobs, like in the old days where there was a lot of airbrushing. And I mean a lot. Now talk about jobs, there was a lot of airbrushing. I just thought I'd show this for a second. This of course is my wonderful, what shall we call it, the water buffalo that I had done some work on, and it appeared on the cover of the magazine. But look, here's what I wanted to show. Look at all the airbrushing and striping and everything that's on that tank. See, this is good if you wanted to buy a lot of 1/8" tape. And it looks like that wouldn't take a long time to do. Trust me. That is a lot of work to do that. A lot of that was done with silk, and a lot of it with tablecloths, and a lot of it with tape, but it was all done, the whole thing is done with an airbrush. And again, thank you, Chris, for finding this magazine, 1976. And I have the whole article here in a place of honor. The place where it appropriately belongs. Right? I thought you'd enjoy that. Ah. This isn't going to work. I know you're laughing, but you didn't take the 1/4" tape off of that side, so let's do this side. Maybe it's old age setting in. Yeah, I didn't take it. That's funny. See, a lot of people, when they do videos like this, they would edit that out. Takes all the fun out of it. And then you don't know whether to ever believe them. You turn into a politician that way. Now, this is a nice color blue. It's got some sparkles in it. It's going to really set off these two colors. And once we get the decals on here, I think it's going to be really nice. And we've got a spectacular day. We've got a day I should be out riding. know what, the riding season will be here soon. Boy, if you only knew how much I love working with an airbrush. Wow. I wish we could go back to the day, that paint job I showed you. Everybody had that kind of a paint job back then. Yeah, that's going to be fun. And just for reference, this is the airbrush that I have, and it's an Iwata HPC, which well, I've had probably since the early days of modeling. I don't know, long time anyway. So maybe those old airbrush paint jobs will come back in style someday, or I'll have to buy a Harley or something so I can live out my airbrush fantasies. But anyway, it really does give you a lot of choices, and in this case, it's allowing us to put what I think is just one of the final little touches on this track bike. And I hope Glenn is already out looking for a title, baby. Because I know when he hasn't seen this yet. When he sees it for the first time, I'm going to try to get the camera on him. Now usually I'd let that sit for about 10 minutes, give it a second and a third coat. Now it is, I can't even tell you what a spectacular day this turned out to be. Just spectacular. And normally I would, if I wasn't babysitting today, I would be going out to the garage and getting a bike ready for a nice ride. But here's the other thing, look across the street. The cherry blossom trees have their first blossom on. Karen's got green stuff in her garden, and I'm going to go take Miles to the park. Hey, look at this. All this stuff is coming back. Spring is in the air. I am so ready for this riding season. A couple of weeks from now, we'll be working on this garden. Everything will look spectacular. All these projects should be behind us, and hopefully we'll be riding. We'll be riding every day, I hope. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. And if you've enjoyed the video, pass it on to your friends. Hey, pass the fish on to your friends. Look at that waterfall. Wow. I'm so ready for spring. Again, thanks for watching. And Glenn, you got a lot to look forward to, baby. This is going to be some nice bike when it's done.